Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Peteman Reviews. Today we have the Transformers Six-Team Micromaster Combiners. Strictly speaking, this is the build team. However, as you can see from the colours, these are the chase variant of the build team and are obviously the Constructicons. Quite an interesting little set this, in the fact that they are Micromasters, as you can tell from the size. But equally, they are, as far as I'm aware, one of the very few Micromasters that actually replicate their larger G1 companions, and they do combine still to form Devastator. So that's a little bit of unusualness for you, and it's done quite well. I suppose the closest you get otherwise are six-liner, which are the trains, which one could argue is based on Raiden. The train team, or Six Train for example, then they're not really, but they do bear a resemblance to Raiden, whereas these guys are the Constructicons. So you have, in terms of names, Bone Crusher is still Bone Crusher, which is handy. No, who's this guy? Scrapper. Scrapper is still Scrapper, so that always helps. Now, it's a little bit different, but this remains Scavenger. Only the way it looks more like a regular crane with a shovel on rather than a proper digger, but nevertheless it remains Scavenger. Hook becomes known as Gren. Green, maybe? Gren? But ultimately it's still Hook. Which is a shame really, because actually it looks fairly like Hook, but nevertheless, Hook. Mixmaster remains Mixmaster. And Long Haul remains Long Haul. So I'm not entirely sure why they felt the need to rename Hook to Gren. Probably something to do with copyright. But nevertheless, they are... Oh, don't kick the camera, it makes it look a little bit silly. Those are the Constructicons. So in terms of transformation, you'd expect it to be relatively simple from being combiners. Just before I get to that, it's also worth noting out that the Devastator parts actually make a plane. And there is even a little peg there. No, we can't see it, but there's a peg there where you can sit a Micromaster in, so they can effectively pilot the plane. So all the leftover kibble that you get, which makes Devastator, you can actually do something with. It helps so you don't lose it as well, and that's actually a really good idea. I know it would have been difficult, but it's a shame the original G1 Devastator didn't have that function, as it gives you something to do with the kibble and makes it quite a nice little add-on. So in terms of transforming these guys, we'll start with this end. As with most Micromasters, they break in two. Not literally break, they split apart in two. And what you end up with, now the head is actually located in here. It's a little bit tough to flip up. I assume the head's located there. I haven't actually transformed these guys before. So, this is note to self, make sure you transform the characters before you do it. They are all a little bit on the stiff side of it, mainly because they're not used so much. There we are. The shovel, incidentally, is soft plastic, so if I hold him like that, you can actually see that it quite clearly bends, which is handy. So the head was in there, it was just very tough to move. So there we are. Simple transformation, replicated throughout the board. I will transform them all just because, so you don't see these guys very often, so it's worthwhile having a look with them. Again, you see it's that breaking apart in the middle. We need to have the arms up like that. If you remember how Long Haul's classic look with this here, same with this front, it's the chest, same here. There we go. As one would expect, they're all simplistic transformations given that they are Micromasters. Mixmaster's the simplest of all. Literally it splits in the middle and there we are, he is done. That's actually quite a good Mixmaster likeness there. Considering the size of them, that's quite impressive. These ones are, again, it's a similar break in the middle, but the legs rotate up that way. And there we are, that's done. He looks a lot like Mixmaster does Hook, with the way that they've, or Gren as I should perhaps say, with the way they change. Same again here. The only difference with him is he's got a shovel on the back. Otherwise, he is pretty much the same. And finally, it's Grappa. Again, exactly the same again. So with all of them, the only one that was a little bit hard, and that was only because the transformation was a bit stiff, was Bone Crusher. It's a little bit dark, isn't it? Does that make any difference? Not one iota. Never mind. So, as you can see, they are our Constructicons. I am just going to fiddle with the light a little bit. There we are, just to help a bit there. So those are the Constructicons. And as you can see, when you have your little plane, I won't use him. He does have a little stand, but depending on the transformation of these, they don't necessarily all fit onto it. Never mind. But they all fit in there, but they don't necessarily actually sit in the little hole there. I suppose they could stand like that. Bit of an uncompromising barrel ride, but they could. So, there we are. That is the Six-Team Constructicon, the Chase variant. Do you want to see them combine? Yeah, let's see them combine. That is, after all, the whole point of getting them. And the whole point of making them green with the kibble to purple is to make them into Devastator. So, to begin with, they need to go back. I know we've only just transformed them, but they need to go back into their various alt modes. Because as with both the G1, the reissues, Titan, whatever version of Devastator you have, they all combine out of their alt mode, not the robot mode. So we have to put them all back in. Luckily, as these are Micromasters, they're a heck of a lot quicker to get back into the alt mode than the actual, even the G1 toys, and certainly a heck of a lot easier than the third-party toys as well. Just because, well, that is how Micromasters work. They are quick, simple, quite good details. I mean, just pause for a second here. Look at the detailing on that. That's pretty impressive for what ultimately is a cheap Micromaster toy. And I know that does happily do that, but again, it's even got a Decepticon symbol on him. So there we are. It's even got a Decepticon symbol on him as well, and the hook actually works. That's quite impressive. And again on here, Power Shovel actually moves up and down. And that's pretty good moulding on them. I know these are latter date ones, and these particular ones are the 2003 reissued model, but they're exactly the same moulds. So they are actually an extremely good level of detail on them, which is nice to see. So in terms of combining Devastator, first of all you need to break apart the plane, and then it's fairly obvious what you're getting with your Devastator parts. In fact, it's blindingly obvious what you're getting with the Devastator parts. Devastator's head does kind of go on the back. It doesn't really have anywhere to go, but the main thing is it's there. Okay, so this is what you will end up with, is the core of Devastator. So it's kind of got the wing built in there. Because of the way they combine, they don't all form back the way they would before. Put him to one side at the moment, because he goes at the back. Put him to one side, he goes at the front. You don't actually need either of those two to form Devastator, as we will demonstrate. So, one leg, other leg. It doesn't really matter too much where you put this guy, he can go on either legs, but traditionally, Mixmaster is found on the left leg. So we'll put him on our left leg. Now, normally this is where Scrapper would have gone on this leg, but because you've got hit this, Scrapper don't fit into that. But Longhaul does, because where Longhaul would normally have gone is here. Well, this bit's already here now, so you don't need Longhaul again. So he now becomes the new leg of Devastator. I'm sure Longhaul would appreciate that as a heck of a lot more than being Devastator's crotch. Okay, so recognisable Devastator right there. Now we move on to the arms. Scavenger is traditionally the right arm, so I think it's only fair that we continue that tradition. You need to transform the legs out like that, because the way the hands work is, you see the slots here and here, these slot into the legs there, like thus. He says, as knowing that they were going to pop out, as is always the way when you're trying to demonstrate something, you guarantee that these things will pop out. There we are. So that becomes the hand and the arm of Devastator, and there's a tab, a hole sticking out there, and a corresponding hole there which goes in. You probably need to have that bit like that, so it gives Devastator quite chunky arms. Why has that popped out again? Probably because I've got it in the wrong one on the wrong side. It's that one into that side. This goes on the other side. Now, as for his left arm, well, it's normally Bone Crusher here. But it don't work on here because it's a different formation. And Hook, or Gren, would normally go here, but it's not needed. So he now becomes the arm instead. Bit confusing, isn't it? But never mind. So again, it pops into there. As you saw from the last one, if you get the wrong one in, it doesn't quite pop in. So it will fit, but it will keep popping out. And broadly speaking, we now have Devastator. He even has a gun, which will hold into that hand. And that is the robot in a nutshell. Now, as you can see, we've only used 4 of our Constructicons to build him. But because of the kibble you've got, you actually can get away with those 4. However, these 2 do still have a purpose, so all is not lost with your toys. Now, the way these operate, you need to almost transform him fully like that, because this rear hole here sits inside here. So you need to angle it in like that. That then sits in there, and then you need to bend him over so he's like that. The crane then goes up, and that effectively becomes your solid chest piece. It looks quite good actually, and it means there's no hole. You now have Bone Crusher. You don't really need to combine him at all. However, he does. Unfortunately, there should be a little hole there, and I don't know how well you can see this, but the actual plastic piece is shown here. It would plug in here, but the actual plastic thing has snapped off, unfortunately, inside here. It's like that when I got it. Heck, that's why you get them for the price you do. All is not lost, however. It's totally not needed for the transformation at all, but you can just hook him. Luckily, the way the toy is, it is possible. A little fiddly, perhaps, but it is possible to hook him on. So this is how he would normally go. He'd normally plug in like that, and if I don't destroy the toy, he will just rest. So it's fine. It's not essential to toy. So if there's any part that you want to snap off, it's for that guy, because you don't need him at all to make Devastator. And there we are. Okay, we all saw that one coming, didn't we? Don't worry, if it does happen to do that, you just need to re-plug those. Just for the purposes of time, I'm not going to re-plug him into the back or bounce him into the back. But trust me, it does fit there, and up until I disassembled them for this video, he was quite happily nestled back there, so never mind. So there we are, that is our mini version of Devastator. Just get him out of shot. Give you an idea of how mini version of Devastator he is. There's our commemorative edition Skywarp G1 and our Combiner Wars smokescreen. So, given that these are Micromasters, they combine pretty well and do produce quite a decent size combiner. It is taller than those, and just to give you an idea of combiner, that's how tall the Micromaster is by himself. It's a kind of kneecap height. These now stand above. They don't tower above, obviously. You know, if we put another combiner there, so this is Superion, the Combiner War Superion. Well, he's not even in shot, so we just move that up a bit. So you know, it's kind of at waist height. with a modern combiner. I know original Devastator is probably more like that height, but nevertheless, it's quite good considering that these are again Micromasters. I hasten to add, they are decent height, and then I think it just shows that actually they are worth getting hold of. I've seen them go for silly money. You can pay silly money for them. Depends. They don't come up very often, so they're worth getting hold of. This is Turbo Train. Turbo Train. I mean to say Turbo Team. I'm sure. Yes, Turbo Team. It bears a passing resemblance to Defensor. Just move this guy out of the way and this guy out of the way. It's not, but it bears a passing resemblance to Defensor. It is actually Turbo Team. He's actually slightly taller than Devastator, not by much. Not as good as Devastator, it has to be said. With the way these go, the way the hands and everything combine, there's not actually enough room for him to use his gun. He's quite good as well. I hadn't seen him before as well, but he was on the same as him. And just to give you an idea, this is how Bone Crusher would be at the back. Superfluous, yes, but it's somewhere for them to go. Of the two, Devastator is by far the better robot, partially because, hey, it's Devastator. The colours look well. The detail is surprisingly good. As I say, for a Micromaster, the detail is considerably better than it is on a classic Transformer as well. So that's quite good to see. And the way they combine is pretty good as well. It's easy to follow. You can do it with 4 combiners. 5 is ideal. 6, you can do it with 6, but you know, our poor little 6-team member just is not needed. He really isn't. We take him away completely, and you would never know unless you turned him around, and even then you only would know because you'd think, hang on, weren't there 6 of them? And you might see a little damage. That he wasn't there, because they fit with the kibble. You don't need him at all. He, as with perhaps the original ones, he suffers from the original ones with very limited articulation. He's better than others in that his because of the wings here, the way the arms work, it completely misses the wing, so he can raise his gun. He surprisingly can do that with his arms as well because of the way the waists work here. But that's it. Oops, he can move his head from side to side, but he's got no leg articulation at all. But again, what do you expect as a Micromaster? You know, all the Micromasters can ever do is move their arms up and down. Devastator's actually got more articulation than a regular Micromaster has. So actually, that's doing very well on that. I think that's all to say about them really. They are hard to get hold of. I definitely would try and get hold of them because, partially because of perhaps the rarity of them, but also because of the quirkiness of them. They are nice little figures to get. They do combine well. They're taller than the original version of Constructor, smaller than a regular Micromaster. Smaller than a regular combiner, but larger than the most classic toys. And indeed the Combiner Warriors toys. Definitely worth picking up if you can. Are they worth spending hundreds of pounds on? Definitely not. Don't spend hundreds of pounds on them. Heck, don't even spend 100 quid on them. They are nice little toys, but yeah, don't go crazy on them. I think that's it to say for that one. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave any comments below, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.